All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tracing a truly remarkable intellectual journey, the story of Allama Muhammad Iqbal. He wasn't a general fighting on a literal battlefield. Instead, he was a man whose ideas and words literally awakened millions of people across the subcontinent. We're going to explore exactly how this poet and philosopher evolved into a political visionary, someone who ultimately proposed a massive, game-changing geopolitical shift, the creation of a completely separate state. But before we get into the history, let's start with a quote that perfectly captures his core message of hope and courage. It translates to, elevate yourself so high that before every destiny, God asks, what is your will? Wow, right? This isn't just some beautiful poetry, it's a profound philosophical statement. He's essentially telling people, hey, you are not just a passive participant in your own fate. Through self-realization and just immense effort, you can actually dictate your own destiny. Definitely keep this idea of ultimate self-empowerment in mind, because honestly, it is the absolute key to understanding his later political demands.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, the poet who woke millions. Second, the scholar's global journey. Third, the philosophy of Khudi. Fourth, proposing a separate state. And finally, fifth, the thinker's enduring legacy.
Let's jump straight into part one, the poet who woke millions. To really understand the man, we gotta start at the beginning. He was born in Sialkot on November 9, 1877, to Sheikh Yar Muhammad and Imam Bibi. Iqbal grew up in a household that was profoundly simple, yet deeply religious. His father was actually known for his piety, and his mother for her immense kindness. So this environment, it gave him a really strong moral and spiritual compass right from the get-go. And it was his first teacher, Maulvi Sayyid Mir Hassan, who originally recognized that this young boy had a completely extraordinary capacity for learning, and he really shaped his early literary and religious education right there in his hometown.
Moving on to part two, the scholar's global journey.
Now let's trace the journey that built his intellectual foundation. He started out locally at Government College Lahore, totally excelling in philosophy and literature. But then he traveled west. He went to England, studying at Cambridge and actually obtaining his law degree. And he didn't stop there. He went on to Munich University in Germany to earn a PhD in philosophy. This global journey is absolutely critical. By studying the great Western philosophers and then combining all that with his deep understanding of Eastern and Islamic thought, Iqbal developed this uniquely comprehensive worldview. He could literally see the strengths and the flaws of both the East and the West, which perfectly positioned him to eventually guide his own people. And that guidance took form in his writings, books like Bang-e-Dara, Bal-e-Jibreel, and Asrar-e-Khudi, along with the beloved school anthem Allahabad. But here's the thing, these weren't merely beautiful poetry collections. They were deliberate tools. He was using them to broadcast a powerful message of knowledge, unity, and action. He wasn't just writing verses to entertain. He was communicating a complete philosophical system directly to the masses. He basically used the sheer emotional power of poetry to wake up a society that he felt had kind of fallen into intellectual stagnation. Even today, children in schools still recite Allahabad, echoing his foundational prayer for knowledge and compassion. Which brings us to part three, the philosophy of Khudi. Think about your own life for a second. How does understanding your own potential empower you to take action today? That's what Khudi is all about. The term is often loosely translated as self for ego, but Iqbal's definition is way deeper than that. It really means self-realization. It's the awakening of that inner spark that connects a person to their ultimate potential. According to Iqbal, you don't realize your Khudi through arrogance. No, you achieve it through immense hard work, the relentless pursuit of knowledge, and just unshakable faith. When you elevate your Khudi, you become a totally dynamic force, completely capable of overcoming any obstacle in your path. But if individual empowerment comes from self-realization, the logical next question is, how do millions of Muslims in the subcontinent collectively achieve the same empowerment? This right here is where the philosopher starts to become the political visionary. You see, Iqbal realized that individual Khudi is incredibly difficult, almost impossible, to sustain if the collective society is oppressed, divided, or lacks a cohesive identity. For a whole community to practice its values, protect its culture, and reach its highest potential, well, it needs an environment that actually belongs to it. And that takes us directly into part four, proposing a separate state. So, in a historic 1930 address in Allahabad, Iqbal officially proposed a separate state. This is the crux of our whole explainer today. Exactly why did he do this? Well, he looked at the social and political climate of the time and realized a really hard truth. To truly protect their cultural, spiritual, and economic identity, the Muslim community absolutely needed its own autonomous territory. Without political independence, the collective Khudi of the people would basically always be suppressed by a larger majority. So this wasn't about mere political ambition for him. It was about creating a necessary sanctuary for a community to freely evolve and build its own future. And this brilliantly illustrates why he is known as the thinker of Pakistan. Iqbal provided the powerful intellectual architecture back in 1930. He essentially drew the blueprint. Then, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah took that blueprint, mobilized the masses, and led the political movement that physically built the nation. It's kind of like a relay race. By 1947, the state that Iqbal had philosophically reasoned into existence was actually born. Finally, let's look at part 5, the thinker's enduring legacy. Even through severe illness in his final years, his commitment was absolute. He continued writing and guiding his nation right up until his passing on April 21st, 1938. Today, thousands still visit his resting place near the majestic Badshahi Mosque in Lahore just to pay their respects. Think about that dedication. Even when his health completely failed him, his pen did not. He kept corresponding with leaders, he kept writing poetry, and he just kept pushing his community forward until his very last days. And consider this incredible historical reality. The thinker passed away in 1938. That is a full 9 years before the actual creation of the country in 1947. Yet his ideas were so robust, and his articulation of collective Khudi was just so resonant that the movement carried on seamlessly without his physical presence. The seed he planted had taken firm root. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. How will you use his enduring lessons of knowledge and self-belief to elevate your own destiny? Allama Iqbal wasn't just a man of the past. His call for self-realization, relentless hard work, and unity, it's a timeless blueprint for success. Whether you're building a nation or just building your own career, the philosophy of Khudi totally still applies. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the mind of the poet of the East. Keep learning, keep elevating your potential, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.